For centuries, the Arctic was a remote, frozen wasteland, a strategic barrier. Today, thanks to rapidly melting ice, it is transforming into the 21st century's most vital strategic chokehold and resource prize. This isn't just about climate change, it's about geopolitics. Beneath the thawing waters lie an estimated 30% of the world's untapped natural gas and vast reserves of oil and rare earth minerals. Crucially, the melting ice is opening up new shipping lanes, primarily the Northern Sea route, which drastically cuts transit time between Asia and Europe. The nation that controls the Arctic controls the future of global trade and resource access. The competition for this frozen prize is dominated by a terrifying strategic reality. Russia is already there. Russia views the Arctic as its sovereign territory and has spent the last decade aggressively militarizing its northern coastline, rebuilding Soviet-era bases, and deploying specialized icebreaker fleets that dwarf the capacity of the US and its allies. Russia's icebreakers are not just commercial vessels. They are potential weapons, capable of securing the new shipping lanes and enforcing Russian sovereignty over vast resource-rich zones. The US and NATO are playing catch-up, while the US holds vast territory in Alaska. Its military infrastructure in the Arctic is minimal compared to Russia's sprawling network of bases. This creates a dangerous strategic imbalance. When American and NATO vessels are forced to navigate through waters Russia claims as its own, the potential for miscalculation, confrontation, and rapid escalation is extreme. The Arctic is officially the new red zone, a pristine, silent environment where the next global war is most likely to begin. The escalating tensions come to a head in a single, freezing incident. A highly sophisticated, nuclear-powered Russian icebreaker asserts dominance over a section of the Northern Sea route, demanding a US Coast Guard vessel or NATO frigate navigating legally through international waters change course. When the Western vessel refuses, the Russian icebreaker executes an aggressive maneuver, not an attack, but a deliberate high-speed collision designed to inflict damage and assert territorial control. The damage is severe, temporarily disabling the US vessel and injuring personnel. The immediate fallout is electric. The US president is faced with a military strike against a sovereign vessel, albeit one that was technically caused by a collision in disputed waters. The strategic dilemma is impossible. The US cannot allow a foreign power to physically enforce sovereignty over international waters, but a military retaliation in the Arctic where Russia is strategically superior risks triggering a full-scale war. The Pentagon activates its emergency Arctic protocols, submarine fleets are secretly deployed beneath the ice, and NATO air patrols are increased to maximum readiness. Simultaneously, China, which has declared itself a near-Arctic state, uses the crisis to demand a seat at the negotiating table, increasing its own presence and strategic leverage. The confrontation reveals the painful truth. Russia's decade of preparation has given it the ultimate escalation dominance in the region. The US is forced into a defensive, reactive posture, scrambling to protect its geopolitical interests while its adversary controls the physical environment. The diplomatic crisis is eventually diffused, but the incident triggers a permanent, irreversible change in global military strategy, the militarization of the Arctic. The US and NATO recognize their critical vulnerability and launch a massive multi-decade project to build out infrastructure, including deep-water ports, advanced radar arrays like the DO Line, and new military bases in Alaska, Greenland, and Norway. This represents a historic and expensive pivot away from desert warfare and towards the harsh realities of the North. The long-term consequence is the death of the Arctic as a shared international space. It becomes a frozen frontier, a permanent theater of great power competition. The geopolitical shift is profound. Resource wars. Nations intensify their scramble for offshore drilling rights and mining claims, leading to continuous legal and diplomatic skirmishes. Trade control. The Northern Sea route becomes heavily regulated and controlled, functioning less as a global trade route and more as a geostrategic artery policed by Russian authority. China's role. China successfully cements its position as a major stakeholder, using its economic power to finance massive icebreaker fleets and resource deals with smaller Arctic nations, effectively encircling Russia and the US with its economic influence. The ultimate lesson of the Arctic race is that climate change is not just an environmental crisis. It is the single greatest driver of geopolitical conflict in the 21st century. The prize is too valuable, and the strategic vulnerability too great, for the great powers to ignore. The next Cold War is being fought beneath the melting ice.